What if I told you that the color you're looking at right now doesn't actually exist? Not in the way you think, not as a pigment, not as a chemical. What you're seeing is a trick, an optical illusion your brain has been falling for your entire life. Hazel eyes. They shift from amber to emerald depending on the light. They change with your mood, your clothes, even the weather. And here's the thing that makes them truly rare. Only 5% of humanity has them. 5%. That's 400 million people out of 8 billion scattered across every continent, carrying a secret written in their DNA that most will never understand. But unlike blue eyes, which are simply missing pigment, unlike brown eyes, which are full of it, hazel eyes exist in the space between, a biological paradox, a color that shouldn't work according to the rules. Inside a hazel iris, two types of melanin are locked in perfect balance. Eumelanin, the dark black-brown pigment, and pheomelanin, the red-gold compound that makes your hair auburn and your freckles appear. But here's where it gets weird. The colors you see, the green, the gold, the flecks of amber, none of those pigments exist in your eye. What you're seeing is light itself being scattered. The same physics that makes the sky blue. Rayleigh scattering is happening inside a hazel iris. Shorter wavelengths bounce off the melanin particles, creating blue and green tones. Longer wavelengths pass through, revealing the gold and brown beneath. It's not a color, it's an event. A real-time interaction between light and biology, happening every time someone looks into your eyes. So if hazel eyes are this rare and this complex, this scientifically improbable, then the question we need to ask is, why do they exist at all? For over a century, we thought we understood eye color. Mendel's pea plants, dominant brown, recessive blue, simple inheritance, case closed. We were catastrophically wrong. In 2020, researchers at King's College London published something that changed everything. Eye color isn't controlled by one gene, or two, or even 5. It's controlled by at least 16. 16 separate genes, scattered across multiple chromosomes, each tweaking melanin production, distribution, and density in microscopic ways. The two major players, OCA2 and HERC2, they regulate the volume of melanin. Too much, brown eyes. Too little, blue. But hazel? Hazel requires something else entirely. Hazel eyes need intermediate activation, not full suppression, not full expression, something in between. A genetic tightrope walk where everything has to be just right. TYR controls melanin synthesis. SLC24A4 affects pigment transport. IRF4 modulates how melanin spreads through the iris. And each of these genes has multiple variants, alleles that can be mixed and matched in millions of combinations. It's not one gene's decision, it's an orchestra. 16 instruments, each playing a slightly different note, and only when they harmonize perfectly do you get hazel. But here's the twist that scientists didn't see coming. These genes, they're not set in stone. In 2013, researchers discovered something unsettling. Environmental factors, specifically UV exposure, can change melanin levels in your iris over time. That's right, your eye color can shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but over years, over decades. The amount of sunlight hitting your face can actually alter the genetic expression in your eyes, which means hazel eyes aren't just the result of your DNA. They're the result of your DNA and your environment, your ancestry and your biography. They're not inherited, they're negotiated. But if these 16 genes create hazel eyes today, where did those genes come from? The answer lies buried in caves, in ancient bones, in the DNA of people who died 10,000 years ago. 1903, Somerset, England. Workers in a limestone cave discover a skeleton. They call him Cheddar Man, 9,000 years old. One of the oldest complete human skeletons ever found in Britain. For a century, he sat in museums, a curiosity, a piece of the past. Then, in 2018, scientists did something revolutionary. They sequenced his DNA, and what they found shattered everything we thought we knew about ancient Europeans. Cheddar Man had dark skin and blue eyes, a combination that doesn't exist in modern Europeans. Dark pigmentation and bright eyes, a genetic recipe that vanished from the world. But here's where the mystery of hazel eyes begins. Around the same time Cheddar Man was alive, something else was happening. Farmers from Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, were migrating into Europe. And these farmers? They had the opposite genetics. Light skin, brown eyes, two populations, opposite traits. And when they met, they mixed. Not violently, not suddenly, but over thousands of years. Their genes blended, dark and light, blue and brown. And in the children born from those unions in the genetic middle ground between hunter and farmer, something new emerged. Intermediate pigmentation. Not blue, not brown, something between. The first hazel eyes. Ancient DNA from Iberia, the Caucasus, Central Europe, everywhere these populations overlapped, we find genetic signatures for intermediate eye colors. Not as distinct categories, but as a spectrum. Hazel eyes didn't evolve from scratch. They emerged at the borders, at the contact zones between worlds. They are, quite literally, the genetic handwriting of two ancient peoples becoming one. But if hazel eyes are just accidents of mixing, why are they still here? 10,000 years later, why haven't they disappeared into blue or brown? Because hazel eyes? They had an advantage. Evolution is ruthless. If a trait doesn't help you survive and reproduce, it vanishes within generations. So, why are hazel eyes still here? The answer lies in something biologists call the Goldilocks zone. Too much melanin, like in brown eyes, absorbs heat. The iris can get hot, especially in intense sunlight. Over decades, that heat stress increases risk of certain eye conditions. Too little melanin, like in blue eyes, leaves you vulnerable. More UV damage, higher cataract risk, more light sensitivity. But hazel eyes? Just right. Enough melanin to protect against UV. Not so much that heat builds up. The perfect balance for temperate climates, Europe, the Middle East, the Caucasus. But protection from sunlight? That's only half the story. Because evolution isn't just about survival. It's about something more powerful, more irrational, attraction. In 2007, evolutionary psychologist Peter Frost published controversial research on eye color and sexual selection. His finding? Rare physical traits are perceived as more attractive. Not always, not universally, but statistically, yes. It's called frequency-dependent selection. When everyone has brown eyes, blue eyes stand out. When blue becomes common, brown or hazel become intriguing. Hazel eyes occupy a permanent sweet spot in this equation, rare enough to be noticed, common enough to persist. You remember them, and in evolutionary terms, being remembered is everything. This creates what geneticists call a stable polymorphism, multiple eye colors coexisting in the same population for thousands of years, none fully winning, none disappearing. Ireland, the Caucasus, Iberia. In all these regions, hazel eyes have persisted at stable frequencies for millennia. But there's a third factor, something that sounds simple but is actually profound. Geography, mountains, seas, deserts. These barriers limited gene flow between populations. When you can't easily mix with neighboring groups, local traits, including rare eye colors, stay locked in. So hazel eyes survived because of a three-part equation. 1. Environmental adaptation, protection without vulnerability. 2. Sexual selection, rarity creates attraction. 3. Geographic isolation, barriers preserve local diversity. But here's what that really means. Hazel eyes aren't just a biological accident. They're a document, a living archive of where humans have been, who they've met, and how they've adapted. Because every person with hazel eyes is carrying something ancient, something that emerged when worlds collided. And those collisions? They're written in your DNA. Close your eyes. Now imagine you could see genetic ancestry the way you see terrain on a map, not borders, not countries, just the living record of where humans have traveled, mixed, and left their mark in the DNA of the next generation. If you could see that map, hazel eyes would light up like stars along every major migration corridor in human history. In 2012 and 2014, teams of geneticists used advanced techniques, admixture analysis, principal component analysis, to map human genetic diversity across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. What they found wasn't discrete groups. It was a continuum, a gradient, populations blending into each other like watercolors. And right in the center of every blending zone, eye color diversity, including Hazel. There's a specific genetic marker, Rs129138332, in the HERC2 gene. It's one of the strongest predictors of blue versus brown eyes. And here's the eerie part. When you map that marker across the ancient world, it tracks perfectly with migration corridors, the Mediterranean trade routes, the Caucasus mountain passes, the Silk Road. Everywhere civilizations met and traded, this marker and others like it show mixing, genetic blending, and in those exact regions, hazel eyes, the Mediterranean coast, the Iranian plateau, the Levant, parts of Central Asia, northern India. These weren't random mutations. They were contact zones, places where blue-eyed northern populations met brown-eyed southern ones. And when they met, they didn't stay separate. They built cities, they traded, they fell in love, and hazel eyes were the result. But here's what's truly fascinating. This isn't just ancient history. In 2023, researchers studying Latin American populations found the exact same patterns emerging again: European, indigenous, American, and African ancestries blending together. And in the genetic middle ground, intermediate eye colors, including hazel. The same process that created hazel eyes 10,000 years ago in Europe is still happening today, in new places, in new populations. Hazel eyes aren't a European trait. They're not a Middle Eastern trait. They're not tied to any one ancestry. They're a mixing trait, a hybrid trait, a trait that emerges wherever genetic worlds collide. They are, quite literally, the color of connection. But if hazel eyes are the genetic signature of mixing, then we have to ask, as the world becomes more connected, as migration accelerates, as borders blur, what happens to the world's rarest eye color? Does it disappear? Or does it become something else entirely? Right now, more humans are moving across the planet than at any point in history. Millions, every year, crossing oceans, crossing cultures, bringing their DNA into contact with populations their ancestors never met. And with every generation, the genetic distance between human populations is shrinking. In 2020, a massive study on urbanization and genetic diversity confirmed what demographers had suspected. Cities are becoming genetic melting pots at an unprecedented rate. The same forces that created hazel eyes in ancient Europe are now operating globally, which raises a strange question. If hazel eyes emerged from mixing, what happens when everyone is mixed? Modern eye color prediction has become astonishingly complex. It's no longer just, what color eyes do your parents have? It's 16 genes, multiple ancestry components, geographic origin, UV exposure history, climate data. We're building polygenic scores, mathematical models that weigh dozens of genetics variants to predict eye color with 90+% accuracy. But these models have revealed something unexpected. Climate is changing the equation. Anthropologist Nina Jablonski has been studying human pigmentation for decades, and her recent work suggests something fascinating and slightly unsettling. Climate change isn't just affecting temperature. It's affecting UV radiation patterns, ozone thickness, sunlight intensity. And because melanin levels can shift epigenetically through gene expression changes influenced by environment, that means our descendants' eye colors might not be determined only by their DNA, but also by the climate they're born into. Imagine, a child born in 2018 in Stockholm might have different melanin expression than the same genetic code would have produced in 1980. Not because of different genes, but because of different sunlight. It's almost poetic, isn't it? Eye color as a living response to the world, not fixed, not predetermined, but negotiated between ancestry and atmosphere. So what does this mean for hazel eyes? The truth is, we don't know. Some geneticists believe increased mixing will create more intermediate phenotypes, more hazel, more unusual combinations. Others think the rare allele combinations that produce hazel will get diluted, absorbed into the broader gene pool. But here's what we do know. Hazel eyes have survived ice ages, mass migrations, empires rising and falling. They emerged from the genetic collision of ancient worlds, and now they're witnessing the birth of a global world. Every person with hazel eyes is carrying an archive, a living document of adaptation, attraction, geography, and chance. They're not just about what we inherited, they're about who we're still becoming. Because in the end, Hazel eyes tell us something profound about being human. We are always mixing, always adapting, always creating something new from what came before. And somewhere, in that endless blending, in that space between what was and what will be, we find colors that shouldn't exist. If this video made you see eye color differently, literally and figuratively, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this with people who love science mysteries as much as you do. And if you want to go deeper, I've linked every research paper mentioned in this video in the description below. Olalde's work on Cheddar Man, Liu's 16-gene study, Jablonski's climate research, all of it. Because science is so much better when you can follow the trail yourself. Subscribe if you want more videos exploring the hidden science of being human, from ancient DNA to what makes us who we are. We're just getting started. And leave a comment. What's the rarest physical trait you've ever seen? Let's build a thread of human diversity. I read every single one. Thanks for watching. Stay curious.